News broke this morning that a judge was arrested in Wisconsin. This judge was aiding and abetting a criminal illegal alien who had been accused of mercilessly beating his wife. This is not Kilmar Abrego Garcia. This is a different story out of Wisconsin. And just the other day, we learned about a Democrat judge so there's a liberal judge. They're nonpartisan, they call it, in Wisconsin. In New Mexico, you had a Democrat judge also arrested, now being accused of tampering with evidence. The other day when we covered this on Timcast IRL, the news wasn't clear. They said he was arrested, then he wasn't arrested. Now we're learning he was arrested. And this Wisconsin story is lighting up the internet with Democrats furious because to Democrats, they're above the law. You're not. J6ers aren't. Trump isn't, but they are. Yeah, we've got the complaint, the arrest, a statement from a witness as to what went down with this Wisconsin judge, and it is insane. She actively obstructed, according to this document, law enforcement trying to deport an illegal immigrant, shuffled him out a back door, adjourned his proceedings, even though he was accused of beating his wife or domestic violence. I don't know if he's married. She let him go. They ended up catching him, came back and arrested her. And now Democrats are acting like this is the beginning of dictatorship. Oh, boy. You know, I'm going to have a field day with this one. We do have a bunch of other stories, but this, of course, is the big one. So we'll see that. Before we get started, my friends, we got a great sponsor. It's Tax Network USA. Go to tnusa.com/Tim now. My friends, tax day has passed. And for millions of Americans, the real trouble is just beginning. If you missed the April 15th deadline or still owe back taxes, the IRS is ramping up enforcement. Every day you wait only makes things worse. With over 5,000 new tax liens filed daily and tools like property seizures, bank levies, and wage garnishments, the IRS is applying pressure at levels we haven't seen in years. Increased administrative security means collections are moving fast. The good news, there's still time for Tax Network USA to help. Self-employed or business owner, even if your books are a mess, they've got it covered. Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track fast. Even after the deadline, it's not too late to regain control. Your consultation is completely free, and acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies before they escalate. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Tim. You may have missed April 15th, but you haven't run out of options. Let Tax Network USA help before the IRS makes the next move. And I have recommended them to a few of my friends. And I will tell you this. I know a couple people you can negotiate. So hit up Tax Network USA if you need to. Shout out. Thanks for sponsoring the show. Also, don't forget to go to castbrew.com and buy some delicious Cast Brew coffee. We got a variety, a plethora, as it were, of different blends. We've got 2 weeks till Christmas. Alex Stein's Primetime Grind. We've got Luck of the Seamus and, of course, Ian's Graphene Dream. And I'm going to let you guys in on a secret. We're working on a Michael Malice signature coffee as well. We're gonna create a huge roster of our friends who get their own coffee and get a commission on all that stuff. But there's also Focus with Mr. Bokus. I know Ian's sitting here, so he's going to demand that you buy his coffee, Graphene Dream.
Do it.
It sells like crazy. It's low acidity. Everybody loves it.
It's very unique. As these coffees go, it's the lowest acidity in the repertoire. And if you ever feel like you get stomach cramps when you drink too much coffee, but you love the caffeine, go low acidity. And,
Indeed.
I think the branding's hot too. So shout out to Jessica for drawing that up.
Don't forget to also smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, it's Josie.
Hi, I'm Josie. I'm the redheaded libertarian. I'm a revolutionary historian, a mother of daughters, and the host of Spaces X Josie on X and on Rumble.
Right on. This should be fun. Ian, of course, is here.
Hello, welcome back, everyone. Good to be here. Let's just roll.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
Here's a story from Fox News, my friends. FBI arrests Wisconsin judge alleging she obstructed the arrest of an illegal alien. Now, we have the FBI charging document right here. Let me just start by saying 2 judges isn't enough. But I'm okay, right? I tweeted 2 judges isn't enough. I tweeted it has begun. I'm a fan of the work of Cash and Dan so far. And there are these right-leaning people who are like, oh, now they're all going to cheer for a low-level judge. This is not the kind of justice we want. I say, calm down, good sir. It's been 3 months. Give Cash and Dan a chance. Bro, I do not believe that Cash Patel and Dan Bongino would walk into the middle of the culture war, cold civil war battlefield, knowing that they face prison if Democrats regain power and then do nothing. They already went after, like, what? They got Papadopoulos. They went after Flynn. They put Bannon in jail, Navarro in jail. Giuliani is facing charges. They went for Trump's lawyers. Yo, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino know full well that if they do not win this, they have put everything on the line. So it has begun. Now, this criminal complaint is crazy. This is a document, United States v. Hannah C. Dugan. And I'll give you the simple version real quick. Illegal immigrant in a courtroom, ICE agents show up and they say, okay, we're going to arrest this guy. They tell the ICE agents, no, just wait until the hearing's over. Let the judge do her thing, and then you can arrest the person. They said, okay. Somebody whispers to the judge, yo, feds are here to arrest this guy. She's furious. She comes out and starts yelling at him. They have to go to the chief judge. While they're basically explaining, like, we have a right to be here. We have a warrant. She's like, you don't have a judicial warrant. You got to leave. And they're like, it's a public building. We can be here. She then goes into her courtroom, effectively expedites or dismisses. I don't know if she dismissed, but she convenes, or she basically ends the proceedings and then tells the illegal alien subject to arrest and deportation to go out a non-public exit used for jurors to evade the police, to evade law enforcement. That's why she's been arrested. But check this out. We have this thread from Margot Cleveland. She says, criminal complaint unsealed in case of Wisconsin judge helping illegal. It is jaw-dropping. In the document, number 6 says, I am aware from a review of public records that on March 18th, Eduardo Flores Ruiz was charged in Milwaukee County Circuit Court, case number blah, with 3 counts of battery, domestic abuse, infliction of physical pain or injury. Not merely 3 counts of domestic battery with physical pain or injury, but he had already been deported once and illegally returned. So ICE goes to arrest him. Some agents notified security and explained the arrest would be court proceedings in the public area, would be after. Others went to the court and notified the court security agent. So this is basically what I just described. A public defender took pictures of the agents and then went and told the judge's clerk, who told the judge. The judge then basically tells the agents they have to leave. We'll scroll down because I talked about this. Courtroom deputy is a good guy. Judge tries to rush the domestic abuser through the process while everyone is supposedly tied up talking to the chief judge. And apparently the victim of the domestic abuse was there too. And she's trying to save this guy from deportation. She takes them out to the jury room. It says, despite having been advised of the administrative warrant for the arrest of Flores Ruiz, Judge Dugan then escorted Flores Ruiz and his counsel out of the courtroom through the jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse. These events were so unusual for 2 reasons. First, the courtroom deputy had previously heard Judge Dugan direct people not to sit in the jury box because it was exclusively for the jury's use. Second, according to the courtroom deputy, only deputies, juries, court staff, and in-custody defendants being escorted by deputies used the back jury door. The judge adjourned the criminal case against the illegal who was charged with 3 counts of domestic abuse, and where the victim was present, state's attorney only discovered later when case was not called. Agents then observed illegal and his attorney trying to leave the courthouse back through the back way, and it took some 22 minutes for them to catch him following a foot chase. Can you believe this?
Yes.
Yeah, bro.
I can actually.
And so I believe we have an image right here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's. I would like to zoom in and get this nice and big for you. That is the arrest of the judge. And it looks like she's not wearing her judge's robe, is she? That's like a hoodie or something.
No, I think that's it.
Are you sure they have hoods on them?
Maybe.
I don't know, man. But they got her. Lock them up.
This is great news that there are actually repercussions for this kind of behavior. This is something that we talked about. It was in regard to Congress people talking to immigrants or illegal immigrants, saying you don't have to talk to police. AOC we discussed, Ilhan Omar we discussed.
Aiding and abetting.
Yeah, aiding and abetting. Mm-hmm. This is a clear violation, and it's great that she's been arrested.
I am tempted to just put on some 80s music and sit here bobbing my head to it the whole time with various news articles saying judge arrested over and over and over again.
Let's do Simple Minds. Don't you forget about me.
That's right.
That's a good one to start
with.
Well,
so Grabian, Tom Elliott, he had this great post where he compiled all of the statements from Democrats and media personalities saying no one's above the law over and over and over again. And so as a matter of happenstance, we were singing that song by, was it BJ Thompson or whatever his name is? Thomas? I don't know. The raindrops are falling on your head.
Raindrops keep falling
Butch
on
Cassidy
my
and the
head.
Sundance
Yeah, we were
Kid.
playing that.
Is that what it's from?
Yep.
And so we were playing that while I was listening to this video. And so I just figured I had to go into Premiere and edit them together.
The idea that no person is above the law is a bedrock principle of American justice.
No man is above the law, no matter what the crime.
And I agree with you. No man is above the law. No person is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one's above the law. No one is above the law.
No man is above the law.
All right, that's enough of that. But you get the point. It's a Good Friday. I figure we'll party afterwards, and it's only just begun. Hopefully, it beguns a lot more after this, and we get a lot more.
I think technically it wasn't last Friday Good Friday. It's just an even better Friday.
Yep. This is Gooder Friday.
I would argue that many Christians would not consider today to be Gooder Friday, but a secondary compared to Good Friday, that's probably way better than today.
Second best Friday.
Second best Friday.
I think I know I'm biased. We're all sort of biased in our living bubbles, but it's just at its face, like these people abetting illegal immigration is horrific for the future of the country. It can't be tolerated.
Not just that, she's like, he was accused of like fairly
Mercilessly
serious crimes.
beating a woman.
Well, what really gets me about this is Amy Klobuchar had posted, she's like, this is not normal. Like just these alarming, these pearl clutching posts that are coming out from congressmen, and it's all repeating.
She's right, though. Amy Klobuchar's right.
That it's not normal to arrest judges.
No, it's not normal for judges to aid and abet illegal immigrants and let them get away.
Yes. So she just has the audacity to really gaslight people who have been paying attention on this. And she said, this undermines checks and balances. It's like, no, the only checks and balances being undermined is the judicial branch to Congress. This is undermining their laws. This is undermining the naturalization process, undermining the supremacy clause.
You know, there's another song that comes to mind. It's the one where it's like, I don't care, I love it. You know that song? I don't care.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Like the Democrats can whinge all they want, and I'm just going to say, I don't care, I love it.
So I think, Josie, what you're saying is this judge was violating due process.
Yes.
Clearly. Well,
Yes.
violating law.
But that's the thing. It's like accuse your enemy of that which you are guilty. And so that's what they do. And as soon as they do that, it all makes sense of what's actually happening. So judges, supreme and inferior, according to Article 3, they have the right to serve in times of good behavior. Aiding and abetting and harboring fugitives is not good behavior. That's bad behavior.
Lock them up.
Are they considered fugitives, technically?
Yes.
Illegal immigrants?
Yeah.
When this
absolutely.
person was a fugitive, they were wanted for arrest. The court proceeding was adjourned, and they escaped out the back of the building.
Are illegal people here illegally technically fugitives, or is it only if you try and get them and they run away?
They're fugitives.
Yes.
And this guy had an order for expedited removal. They do not have trials for this. The media is gaslighting the public into thinking there's a criminal trial for every illegal immigrant.
Did you know that Barack Obama, 75% of his deportations didn't have any due process?
Is that because none was
See,
needed?
I got to stop you there. That's wrong.
That was from the ACLU.
They are lying.
I guess that's fair. The ACLU does lie.
Indeed.
Yes.
Due process does not mean a criminal trial.
Well, that's what I mean. Dude, they didn't deserve a criminal trial, so they didn't get one. Therefore, due process was
Yes.
followed, even though there was no process. Well, the process was just get out.
See, this is the gaslighting. And I got to stop you. This is the gaslighting. They say they were deported with, like under Obama, none of these guys got due process. That's incorrect. What process are you due? Okay, as an illegal immigrant, you get reviewed by law enforcement. They check your IDs. They can check the IDs and detain any American citizen at any point. If there's reasonable suspicion, which is incredibly easy to get, an officer can stop you and ask you questions. They can ask for your ID. You don't have to give it to them. You can say, am I being detained? And you can go. But if they have reasonable suspicion that you're an illegal immigrant, they can escalate a little bit. Often what happens is they find out the individual is not a citizen, or suspicion grows to probable cause. And then they say, okay, expedited removal. That is the process that you are due as an illegal immigrant. So what's happening now is Democrats are trying to create the idea in the minds of Americans that due process means flatly 100% criminal jury trial with the defense counsel. That's for American citizens. Due process is different in many different cases. Okay, so due process can be if a judge denies your evidence. You as an American, if you're a J6er and you get a criminal trial and a jury and legal counsel on both sides, and then you say, Your Honor, this video is exculpatory evidence proving I'm innocent, and the judge goes, you can't show it. That's a violation of due process. but you got a criminal trial and a hearing and all of those things. Due process does not mean criminal trial. So when we issue expedited removals, they never go before a judge. An ICE agent finds a guy, they investigate, they say this person is an illegal immigrant. They file for removal. They negotiate with the home country, put them on a plane, and fly them back. End of story. That is due process.
I found the ACLU how they worded it. The Obama administration has prioritized speed over fairness in the removal system, sacrificing individualized due process in the pursuit of record removal numbers. This was 2014. The deportation system that heard 75% of people through fast track streamline removal is a system devoid of fairness and individualized process. So that's how they were able to word it and get away with pathing it off as truth.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. Now you've got that story that we've gone over a couple times where it says Trump wants no trials for illegal immigrants, but they never got trials in the first place. Yes. The rare circumstance where illegal immigrants get trials is if they have, like, let's say you're granted a 10-year visa for some reason, and then 3 years in, they tell you they're revoking it and they cite some reason. You can challenge that. And then you go to court and you challenge it. Then you can file an appeal. But so in the instance of Abrego Garcia, he had an order for removal and he conceded he could be deported, but his lawyer tried using asylum and 2 withholding of deportations claims. And that's how they filed after the fact. So this went before these judges are executive branch magistrates. They're not like courts. It's an immigration judge who just says, yeah, he can go. And then they were like, we want asylum. That's the game they try to play. Democrats are trying to get asylum claims for every single one of these people. Fake news. Send them home.
Absolutely. I mean, it should be obvious that he gets sent home. But I think that the fact that they've arrested, 2 judges now, the judge and his wife and this other judge, is good for the American people in that they see that there are repercussions. They see that the administration is not just talking about stuff. They see that the things that Republicans have been saying for the better part of a decade, they see that there's actual movement on this stuff. I don't do predictions very often, but I am of the opinion that this will probably have a positive effect on the administration's overall, how people look at the administration.
Well, the risk is when there's like with them striking at this one judge, other Democrats are going to try and go underground. They're not going to stop their work.
That's what I'm talking about.
They're going to entrench. It's not that you don't do it. It's that you have to be prepared that they're going to try and hide now.
And also, they're going to try and liken it to the way that the Nazis people were hiding Jews in their houses, like Anne Frank, and the Nazis were going door to door searching for them. They're going to make it seem like that, even though these people are illegally immigrating to this country and need to be removed, whereas the Jewish people were citizens of the German country.
Mm-hmm. Let's jump to this next story real quick from Axios. Congress erupts over FBI arrest of Wisconsin judge and blah, blah, blah. I don't really care. The next story is MAGA cheers Wisconsin judge's arrest. Well, because she's a criminal being arrested. So this is here's Rick Wilson saying, I says on. So I think it's a typo. So we're arresting judges now. Good to know. Hey, bro, y'all arrested lawyers first. I mean, okay, I'm not going to. Here's Amy Klobuchar. This is not normal. The administration's arrest of a sitting judge in Wisconsin is a drastic move that threatens the rule of law. While we don't have all the details, it's a grave step and undermines our system of checks and balances. Maybe y'all should not have arrested the front runner for the presidency and his lawyers and his associates.
And his valet.
Wow.
You'd think that might occur to them.
Didn't they arrest a janitor?
They arrested everybody they could get their hands on.
Here's Tina Smith. Understand what this is. If Kash Patel and Donald Trump don't like a judge, they think they can arrest them. This is stunning. Yep. We must stand up to this blatant power grab. Republicans, how is not a red line for you? I will not be swayed by psychopathic, evil narcissists who have been gutting and burning this country to the ground because now we have actual accountability. But you know what? The important thing is, there's no, the important thing to understand, I should say, there is no off-ramp. Democrats literally set fire to the Constitution well, I should say figuratively, is how I was using the word literally, set fire to the Constitution to steal power in this country and lost. And we have to bring about accountability to these people or we are doomed. But you know what? It doesn't matter because Democrats are going to say, no matter what you do, you're Hitler. And stupid people are going to believe it. So welcome to the highway with no off-ramps. All we can do is pedal to the metal, baby.
The off-ramp thing is interesting because it feels like a chrysalis, like we're in the cocoon emerging now into this new creature as the United States. And I don't know, Josie, you're basically a constitutional expert. Do you think that this metamorphosis can sustain?
Well, what I'm worried about is the way that people are interpreting the arrest of judges, because the talking point is he's arresting judges now, because they put him off as being a tyrant. So now they have to prove that he's a tyrant. So just talking to the normal people, saying he's arresting judges now. Who do they hear about judges and Trump? They're hearing about the federal judges who are pushing back and impeding on his executive power, essentially. So they're not thinking that it's judges who are harboring criminals, because that sounds like that's crazy. That's Alex Jones level crazy to them. Like, no, there's no judges harboring criminal aliens. That's not happening. So they're assuming that the judges that are being arrested are the ones who are pushing back against Trump. Those are the ones. It's the federal judges who are pushing back against Trump, and he's throwing them in jail. They don't know that they're aiding and abetting because this is not the stuff being reported.
No, but they're right. Mm-hmm. This judge was pushing back against Trump, trying to create this world that is lawless that Democrats want to live in. So let's put it this way. Shout out to Michael Malice, because he said recently, I love how all these Republicans become anarchists the moment, like Trump should defy the courts because, right, whoever can enforce the law has the power to do so. There are a bunch of laws on the books that we never enforce. Democrats, in their world, we do not enforce deportations. So when you got that law in Florida that says women can't skydive on Sunday, I think that's not really true, but that's the idea. We look at that like, well, that's stupid. Women can skydive whenever they want. So we don't enforce that. No cop's going to arrest a woman for skydiving. Democrats are going, yeah, that's ridiculous. We're not going to arrest a guy because he's not registered and not a citizen. He lives here. He's a Maryland man. So when Trump says we're going to arrest him, to them, imagine a cop arresting a woman for skydiving on a Sunday, and that's how they view what Trump is doing. So that judge is doing the legal thing by letting that illegal immigrant escape because we don't enforce those laws. This is what I'm talking about when I say there's a moral bifurcation in this country, and there is no way to remedy this, and it's a collision course. So how about we try the time travel test once again, so I can rub this in the faces of the naysayers over and over and over again. Go back in time 10 years and describe everything we've seen so far. Well, what's going to happen is Trump's going to get elected president. They're going to accuse him of being a Soviet spy. No, not a Russian spy, a Soviet spy. On MSNBC, they'll say he's been working for the Soviets since the 80s. Then they're going to impeach him. They're going to imprison one of his campaign manager. They're going to then arrest several of his lower staff, accuse his national security advisor of lying to the FBI to try and put him in jail. They will arrest Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro. Then you're going to get the worst lockdowns we've ever seen in 50 years, total pandemic lockdowns, the worst riots we've seen in 50 years. 1,000 people are going to storm into the Capitol and disrupt the electoral vote count. And now we get to, also, they're going to arrest Trump's lawyer. They're going to arrest Trump himself. They're going to fabricate new laws specifically to go after Donald Trump. Notably on the E. Jean Carroll case, they made a new law in New York just so she could sue him. They will falsely accuse him of 34 felonies, which don't exist and have no underlying crime. They'll falsely accuse him of civil fraud. And then Trump's going to win anyway. And his FBI director will start arresting judges.
That's the white pill. If you gave me the time travel test 10 years ago, that he got elected a second time, even despite all that stuff, I'd be like, we have some power as American citizens.
You'd say you're a psychopath and none of that is possible.
Well, not me. I was into it, but other people mostly.
Okay, accepted.
Yeah.
Ian would be like, yeah. They'd be like,
been talking about
machine elves would come too.
Because they kept saying the fall of the American empire is imminent. This is just the way it manifested.
Ultimately, my point is
more of an alteration than a fall.
Every time we do this, imagine going back in time and telling people what happened today. Imagine going back 10 years and saying, when Trump wins his second term, a non-consecutive term, by the way, after they accuse him of being a Russian spy for 10 years, his new FBI is going to start arresting Democrat and liberal judges for aiding and abetting terrorist organizations and criminal cartels and narco gangs, illegal immigrants. People are going to be like, what? That's insane. That'll never happen.
You called this like a moral dilemma. That's what I feel like this is, because it's so much like the Nazi Germany thing with the Jews, the way they were the way they were treating these people as second-class citizens, it's easy for people to fall into that state of mind and just blanket. They already called Trump Hitler for 5 years. So it's really about, I think, gently nudging people's morality towards understanding the danger of mass immigration, mass
This is the
migration.
play. The play is, if they defeat Donald Trump, they will have gaslit America and created a new history. That you have undocumented Americans and you have documented Americans. What they're trying to do now is Hitlerize Trump so that if Trump is defeated and crushed, they're going to say, never again will we allow our citizens, our undocumented citizens, to be oppressed and rounded up like this. This is how their plan is to create a system by which in the United States you have undocumented and documented citizens. They've already tried using that terminology. They pulled back a little bit. I believe Hassan Piker on his stream was referring to them as undocumented citizens. That is they tried this. So the goal is we will lie about whatever Trump does. We will make it seem like what he is doing is rounding up the Jews. And then we will argue to all Americans who think it's bad, we can never do this again, which means no more deportations ever.
The Alex Jones has obviously InfoWars, and I've been critical of the name InfoWars, even like culture war. I'm like, why manifest war? But the reality is this information manipulation is a form of psychological warfare. And people have been using these, what do you want to call it, corporate media, MSNBC, these high-powered fire hoses of data transfer to brainwash people since the inception of the technology, but especially since the advance of the internet. And now there's all these other people delivering knowledge as well. So it is a battle, I guess you could say, of the mind.
Would you say it's information warfare? Yeah,
I think so. Like, I don't want to soften warfare. I don't want to soften the term, but it's definitely like information
civil conflict.
Yeah, what?
When it comes to citizens, how they keep saying citizens, written in the amendments, the 16th, 19th, 24th, and 26th, it says it has the citizens' right to vote in these ways. Those are the voting amendments. So if you want to think of who was ever supposed to vote, it was always meant to be citizens as soon as they involved the federal government.
What was the last part? What'd you say?
As soon as they involved the federal government in voting, because it was always a state's right, it became citizens. So each of the 4 voting amendments say it is the right of the citizens to a citizen who's a woman, a citizen who's a freed slave, a citizen. So,
yeah, I mean, and that because that points to the fact that Democrats have been trying to
get citizens so citizens can vote. So these are just undocumented citizens. See, they can still vote.
Which is still just, it's just word games to them. Mm-hmm. But if they can get the American people to kind of just accept that. It becomes truth. Yeah, accept that as truth, that would, that will help them to allow the actual non-citizens to vote, which is something that we've discussed around this table here multiple times.
Yeah, without cultural cohesion or belief in it, they won't support the law. If people really believe they're citizens, they won't step up to have them.
Let me help you out, Ian. First, generational warfare, line and column tactics, muskets, formal battlefields. Second generation warfare is firepower, mass artillery and trenches, industrialization. Third generation warfare is maneuver, blitzkrieg, strategic attack points. So this is more like World War II. Fourth generation generational warfare, decentralized non-state actors, psychological and information warfare, blurring the lines between civilians and combatants. And finally now, today, fifth generational warfare, information, cyber, psychological, and perception manipulation. There are no clear battlefields, and wars are fought in mines and online more than on land.
Yeah, you get someone to destroy themselves. It's
influence operations, AI warfare attacks, and cyber attacks.
Man, they always say the modern war, you don't want it because you never know how it's going to be. Like World War I, they didn't realize there were going to be machine gun nests, and that's where we're at, staring down this AI manipulation right now.
Isn't it fascinating how wrong? I think it was Einstein, right? Who said, I know for not which weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Yeah. Boy, was he wrong. Because likely World War III is going to be subterfuge, cyber attacks, and perception manipulation. No, it's not going to be kinetic.
That's the point. the consequences and the cost of a global war, of all-out global war, like a World War I or II was, it's too high, and that's why information warfare is what nation states have defaulted to, espionage and proxy wars and stuff like that.
But I don't think I don't think it's a cost issue. I think it's an effectiveness issue. Cost is a component of that, but it's basically, if you could go to Genghis Khan and say, I will conquer all of this land towards Eastern Europe and to Asia, and you will never lift a sword or a bow or a spear, do you want that? They would say yes.
Yeah, he preferred that. He would, if people would surrender, he'd let them live. He'd integrate them into their.
But with nuclear war, you're ruining the land.
The point is, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. Then it's not going. That's why. Well, they don't.
No.
It doesn't happen and so they default to something else.
No, it's not going to happen because it's not as effective as manipulating the entire population into bowing before you. Nuking a country makes that country hate you forever.
Well, it also. I mean.
Well, maybe not forever. I mean, look at Japan.
But we did kind of invade and take over Japan.
Yeah. So instead of nuking a country, destroying land, it is cheaper, faster, and easier to take over their minds through manipulation.
Oh, especially with decentralized tech. It can happen overnight. An internet video can manipulate 100
social
million
media.
People. Sorry,
I still think that the fact that you spoil the land is a big part of the reason why none of the global superpowers ever actually got into direct conflict. There was proxy wars and stuff like that because those were a better option. And now that proxy wars aren't really, well, there are some proxy wars, but now that information flows so freely, because before the internet, information flow wasn't so that you could use information warfare the way that we did. So you had after the end of World War II until 2000, 2000, just for, when most people in the developed world had computers in their houses. You didn't have the ability to really influence minds over the internet or influence minds with propaganda. The United States was fairly isolated. It used to be militaries that wanted to influence people or populations. They had to either fly over and drop leaflets, or they had to have people on the ground printing newspapers and producing television shows or whatever, having some way to spread that propaganda. Now that the internet is in everyone's home and people can go wherever they want, that makes it possible to actually transmit information.
So the question is, what is the most effective means of warfare? And nukes ain't it.
Not anymore, yeah.
So it's not an issue of we're going to ruin land. No, if we truly wanted to wipe out an enemy, we'd march to the sea. We'd go scorched earth. The issue is it's substantially cheaper to hire a bunch of Turkish dudes with 50 phones each to spam blast a nation and have them turn their country over to you in a couple of years.
That's what concerns me about the industry in China, the shipping the American industry to China over the last 20 or 30 years, because I think this psychological war it's been going on since the dawn of time, but it's really ramped up since the age of the internet. And to lose that production capacity, there's this game, Axis and Allies, wonderful World War II board game, better than Risk. It's not about money. None of the countries ever buy stuff with money. You buy it with production power. If you have factories, you can build troops, you can build, armor, tanks, planes. If you don't have factories, you can't. And that's it. It's called GDP. So without your productive capacity, you're impotent on the global military stage. We need to get those factories back here or build new ones.
Let's jump to this next story. We have this clip from Fox News of Pam Bondi. It turns out that the New Mexico Democrat judge did not just harbor this guy, but apparently is being accused of giving him a rifle. And let's just say doing more than harboring, trying to cover up and protect him. Listen to this.
The associations with this violent Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua, and this person that they harbored in their home, he was showing signs through clothing, we were told, tattoos. There was evidence through voice messages and text messages of his association to TDA. So what charges will Cano and his wife face, if any?
So Judge Cano, soon to be former Judge Cano, got his charges were just unsealed. He's charged with obstruction. He admitted post Miranda. He took one of the TDA members' cell phones himself, took it, beat it with a hammer, destroyed it, and then walked the pieces to a city dumpster to dispose of it to protect him. The wife also is charged with destroying evidence. Sandra, not only that, this TDA member, and he had on a necklace that said kill, something about death. He had tattoos all over him. He also had on his cell phone pictures of 2 decapitated victims. Victims, decapitated, gruesome photos. And he was sending them out, and whoever he was sending them to was sending back saying, hey, you need to be careful. You shouldn't be sending these. You shouldn't be texting these photos out. Not only that, these two, the judge and his wife, gave him assault rifles that belonged to their daughter. That's what they're charged with. I'm
going to stop there and say I'm pretty sure they didn't give him an assault rifle. It was probably an AR-15.
Come on, Pam.
In the criminal report affidavit, he goes to a shooting range with these assault rifles, with a suppressor, with other known TDA members.
Okay, actually, maybe then.
Shooting. This is the last person that we want in our country, nor will we ever tolerate a judge or anyone else harboring them.
Well, if it was a suppressor as well, maybe it actually was a legit assault rifle. Like
it's just a vague term, assault. You know, it could be a fully automatic.
It specifically refers to select fire.
Assault
so
weapon.
what is it? What is it? Semi-auto, burst, and full auto?
Sure, that makes sense if you're actually going to assault.
Typically, when people are saying that, well, that's what it means. Typically, when people say assault rifle, like Democrats, it means literally nothing. It means scary-looking gun.
How did this TDA member get into the house? How did this even come about where a judge would be like, yeah, you can come live in my house with my children? And
judge is probably TDA too.
That's a great question, Joe. I have no idea.
Well, apparently, like he was dating his daughter. But the point, largely, in my opinion, is, look, after a couple decades of criminal gangs, narco gangs coming into this country, they're going to get positions of power. They seek them out. They want the authority. And we are seeing it now. Like this Democrat, this liberal, she's not a Democrat, liberal judge in Wisconsin. I wouldn't be surprised if she's paid off or in on the take. That she's doing this not because she's like, I think it's wrong that they're arresting illegal immigrants, but she's like, there's my paycheck. Quick, get out of here.
Wow, that's a whole other level of betrayal. If the people are getting bribed to facilitate it, and we know that people got bribed or at least got paid NGOs to run people up through Central America from the Darien Gap into the United States, that there were actual organizations and companies facilitating it. I wouldn't be surprised if that goes beyond the border. But, you know.
What do you mean beyond the border?
Beyond the Like, I don't think those NGOs just stop at the border of the United States and just say, okay, we're done. I have a feeling that they're still interacting with people in the United States to.
Of course they are.
Oh, yeah. Not that it's not proof.
James O'Keefe exposed a lot of these people.
Yeah.
So there's a judicial immunity, and it's a common law practice, which essentially means that the judges made it up for themselves. And that only goes to civil offenses, but it almost feels like they're trying to extend it to criminal offenses at this point. But that's not constitutional.
Well, I mean,
so what's next?
Well, I keep thinking about how glad I am.
More judges, hopefully.
Well, the only way.
I mean, what are Democrats going to do to respond to this? Are they routed and the deep state just concedes?
I would say I just watched your interview with Sebastian Gorka, which people should watch, and he said no.
Yep, he said
give it 18 months, then we'll talk.
Yeah, and he said, what did he say effectively? That they're still entrenched and powerful. We haven't won yet.
Yeah, he was speaking up for like why you're not hearing a lot from Kash Patel or Dan Bongino. I mean, they're basically the head of the secret police, the FBI. Hopefully they're doing justice, you know, and they're not going to be telling you everything they're doing every step
Not the
of the way.
secret police.
Well, the deep state is secret police.
It's also a secret police force, unfortunately, but the FBI is supposed to be the government's secret.
They're a regular police force. A secret police force would be like, they just wrap you up and then you're never heard from again. And
well, that's what they were saying when they were taking people. They were calling it disappearing them.
Yeah, well, that's Democrats just being histrionic and ridiculous.
But look, again, these people exist. There are many of them, and they are claiming that Donald Trump is doing Hitler things. Expect some kind of escalation.
And so I keep seeing, I'm really glad like Pete Hegseth is so vocal and transparent with what they're doing with the DOD. I follow him on Twitter, and you should too if you're interested. He comes on, he makes videos 2-3 times a day sometimes about changes. And Pam Bondi, super transparent. But then I'm like, okay, think about the Nazi metaphor. So is Joseph Goebbels.
Why-
They weren't transparent. They were just vocal.
Why are you associating the current administration with a murderous regime?
Because-
what is it about our current administration that resembles the Nazis to you?
Two questions you asked. The first one is because art of war. Understand your enemy. Understand the way that these.
Who is your enemy?
Well, no one really, but the liberal media, whatever you want to call this media that's going to frame these people as Nazis, think the way they think if you want to understand how to circumvent and defeat the process.
Okay, good point. Pause real quick. These people don't actually think Trump is Hitler. They're lying.
The people that are saying it, I think they are lying, but the people hearing it and believing it, okay, understand the way they're going to be manipulated.
And they're not the strategists, and they're not the resource providers. So if you're actually talking about how do you understand the mentality of the deep state, their mentality is much more like we can rally violent terror attacks by claiming Trump is like Hitler.
Because
not to actually say Trump is like Hitler.
Those people would feel justified in whatever action they had to do to stop Hitler.
The only reason I bring that up is I think it's unproductive for people to associate or at least people with a realistic understanding of reality, to associate the current administration with the Nazis, because they're nothing alike at all.
But you said, you said 2 points. What was your other point?
The second question, you had two questions. The first was, why do I...
No, he said, why are you likening the current administration
Correct.
to the Nazis?
I think because it's a populist movement with a strong... Like Trump's basically a strong man as a president.
So are the communists.
Like, yeah, it's basically like we're in a sort of cultural revolution, whether we want to be or not, globally and domestically. So... And with the mass immigration problem of trying to find people and get them out of the country, that was the Nazis were going through that with the Jewish population.
The Nazis literally went into other countries to get Jews.
Oh yeah,
there's not like getting illegal immigrants out of the United States has no relation to the way.
I want you to know, I do not think this is like a Nazi administration at all. I don't find it even remotely nationalist socialist in any. It's a capitalist, like global, like organized movement. It's not. It's well beyond. But people will make this claim. Thanks, man. Protein smoothie. Why? Can you see that I'm shaking?
No, I was gonna do that. You must be hungry thing from like the Snickers commercial. Like you're sitting here saying Trump's like Hitler, and I'm like, you need to eat, bro.
It's not like Hitler. But people will claim. People have claimed he's like Hitler, and the masses are gonna.
You're not yourself.
Hold on. I kind of want to buy a bunch of Snickers bars, and then whenever some lib goes off and goes crazy accusing Trump of being Hitler, just like throw him a Snickers.
Food at him.
Healthy.
Like,
Yeah, get a
you must
healthy-
be hangry. Like in
version.
it's the effectiveness of that
You
advertising.
should have just chicken nuggets. Just start throwing nuggets at them, like dino nuggies.
I brought it up because I was so glad that Hegseth and Pam Bondi are vocal and transparent, because we didn't have that with Lloyd Austin in the last administration at all. Like they never. So, but then I was like, well, being public isn't necessarily in and of itself good, because I thought about Goebbels and I was like, they were very vocal in public. They were just liars and manipulators. These guys seem to be honest, at least. They seem to be. I mean, Kash Patel, I would say, is one of my best friends. I've only hung out with him for 4 hours, but I love the guy. He's excellent human being, and
Cash is watching right now, and he's like, I'm not best friends with that guy.
I know, not at all. But,
I don't even know who
he's
this
the kind of
crazy
guy
guy is.
I could easily like go fishing with, or like.
Bro, he
go to the
plays
bar.
hockey in DC. Like, isn't he on the same team as Richie McGinnis?
Oh, I wouldn't surprise me.
Who was it here that was here the
Richie.
other day? It was Richie McGinnis. Yeah.
Yeah, Richie's. I think they're on the hockey team together.
That's awesome.
And I'd love to get Dan or
normal
Cash
guy.
on the show, but as their head of law enforcement, you can't really be like, hey, would you want to come on and expose all the operations you're engaged in, because we know you're doing. They can't do it.
And now we're in this position where like we're on the not on the inside, but like inside adjacent to the revolutionary force of the world right now, like the American government, and we actually know people that are running it. That
Revolutionary force of the world.
Yeah. The American government is a revolution. The United States is a revolution. Tim told me that one time 5 years ago, and it stuck with me. It is. That's what we are, is a constant
Well, yeah,
revolution.
it was, we had kings, and the kings were better people. And then the Americans were like, nah, that's whack. Let's not do that.
And we wrote it into our Constitution that we can constantly revolve our system of governance through amendments. New people come in, the revolving door, come in, come out.
You know, I do think the Founding Fathers probably realized this much later on, having earned the experience of a union, that they created a great system, but there's no such thing as a perfect system. So how could they have predicted a mechanism by which you would stop a judicial coup? What happens when judges, to a great degree, are aligned ideologically and are seeking to undermine or overthrow the government?
Josie, what do you...
So in the Constitution, the most that can happen is impeachment, obviously, but that was hard to do before we were ideologically captured. It was very hard to do. So what Congress has the power to do is to regulate their jurisdictions of all the judges. They're able to they're able to shrink where they are, and that can affect who comes to them and what they're able to rule over and stuff. And that's it. That's as far as they can go. It would have to be, I mean, it would have to be the Chief Justice to come out and get his people in order, because we've never seen anything like this.
The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court? How would he get his people in order?
I don't know.
So these people, like a Wisconsin district judge that's like, Trump can't do that thing, like that obviously
all that they can do is just keep ignoring it. And then, I mean, because what'll happen? Okay, you're going to ignore. Nope, now you're in contempt. Now we have to arrest you. Who are they going to send to arrest him? His own police? That's not going to happen. So you know, we're in. I don't like using it. This is kind of a constitutional crisis. It's just because we've never been here before. We've never seen anything like this. So when it comes to these federal injunctions, we have one every few years, 2, 3. Like, it's not. We've had 30 in the first month. This is not something that happens. So I have no idea how to solve it.
We sort of pointed out a couple weeks ago, maybe or last week, that a lot of it has to do with seems to have to do with the speed of data transfer now with internet. That as soon as Trump makes a move, everyone in the country hears about it within 5 minutes. So judges are on the phone; they're filing paperwork within 8 minutes. And the Constitution wasn't ready for the internet. They
can find out who is filing all these injunctions, and if it's an NGO or something, they can try to shut that down.
You know what's pretty wild is I just interviewed Secretary Duffy, Kristi Noem, and Sebastian Gorka. And Secretary Noem, of course, is running DHS. And I was thinking to myself, like, wow, 20 years ago, what would I have thought if someone said, you will be interviewing the head of DHS and you will agree with them? Right? That's kind of a crazy thing.
You're full of it.
No, I don't know. I'd be like, so we won? Because that's how I feel. You've got a lot of these people who are adversarial journalists who are just like, you know, when we had Taran, why are you defending them? And it's like, I'm not defending Hegseth. I'm challenging your presumption that Signalgate matters to the average person. It does not. It matters to politicos who are liberal. But you go to a regular working class guy and say, do you care that Hegseth had a journalist in a chat, you know, talking about the time that they were going to do some strikes? They'd be like, I don't know, I guess. Or if I said, Trump's tariffs have affected your 401k, yes or no, they'd say, yeah, it did. I'm not happy about it. Okay, so what do people really care about? Certainly it's not that.
You got to keep in mind that Hegseth didn't leak that stuff. Other people are seemingly trying to take that guy down because he's doing such an effective job and working.
Oh, it's getting wild.
He doesn't want to go to war with Iran.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to.
And I think Tulsi Gabbard, too, advised Trump, do not do this. Israel wanted a joint strike. And Trump was like, what do we do? Tulsi Gabbard, and I think Hegseth, too, I'm not entirely sure, we're like, no.
Yeah.
That Laura Loomer's been reporting on that a lot, that she thinks that there's a big takedown effort of Hegseth at the moment.
Well, he was the hardest one to get through confirmation.
Was he the 50-50 one?
Yeah, he was the one, he was the hardest one to get through it. They're like, this is going to be, this is the measure for everybody else. If we can get him through, we can get everybody through.
J.D. Vance had to run on over to the Capitol and
then do a tiebreaker.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man.
But
just got goosebumps, bro. I don't know. Sorry, what were you saying?
You okay?
It's electrifying to be part of this.
Okay. Look, I mean, at the end of the day,
real quick. Sorry. Just Ian, did you ever think in your time you would have actually sat next to a guy who would go on to become the head of the FBI?
No.
Like here you are hanging out talking with Kash Patel. He's been on the show. And now he runs the FBI.
I used to say when I was a kid, I'll be president one day. And then I learned what that actually meant. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And now the circle's coming back around where it's like, yo, if people ask me to hold the position, I'll hold the position.
I take a look at, Kash, of course, he wrote that book. What was it called? Government Gangsters? Was that his book?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so. And I remember we've had him on several times. We talked to him. The first time I interviewed Trump, we actually had Kash on for the majority of the show. And then we only had about 17 minutes with the president. At the time, he wasn't president. And where I feel we are now is it's insane. It was like, I remember we were in Austin when Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty. And it was crazy. All the women were crying. Like, my mom was crying. She's like texting me like, I can't believe it. Justice. We're so happy for this young man. When Trump won, and then over the next, month or so, when he gets Tulsi Gabbard in, Cash, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, it's like we are winning these positions. So when I brought up, it's kind of crazy to sit next to Kristi Noem and be like, the head of DHS, wow. But I actually agree with these people. For most of my life, the people who have been in these positions of power have been deep state shills, uniparty, talking point liars. Now it's Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, and it's kind of crazy because it's like, oh boy, they got a lot of work in front of them, and they are in one of the most dangerous positions. We view it largely as a position of power, but now you've got the entire orchestrated global, liberal economic order not happy with what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's no joke. The task that the Trump administration is actually embarked on is massive. I mean, and as much as people complain, they're not moving fast enough, blah, blah, blah. The fact that two judges, three, a judge and his wife and another judge have been, arrested. I mean, I can't imagine that happening under any other administration. I don't think that certainly obviously wouldn't happen under the Biden administration.
And I want to say this too, just everybody to reiterate. Kash, so when you mentioned the Gorka interview, he mentions that Kash Patel was a victim of the deep state.
Yeah.
They went after him. So Kash now, as head of the FBI, and Dan Bongino as deputy director, a lot of people are posting on X. They're like, why aren't they doing anything? I want the files. I want the arrest. And they're angry. I just hope everyone realizes by taking those positions, they have put themselves in front of Donald Trump. They're in the line of fire. Deep state actors arrested his lawyers, his people who worked on his campaign. Yep. They arrested his valet, as Josie mentioned earlier. They arrested him. They lied about him. They smeared him. They accused him of sexual assault and felonies and fraud. When Kash and Dan took that position, the question was simple. Will you take a job knowing that if you fail it, they will destroy everything you know and love?
There's a possibility that when this administration is over, if the Democrats win, there's a significant possibility that all the people in this administration become targets of the.
They'll go to jail. It'll be prison.
Yeah,
like if Kash and Dan do not succeed in their efforts, if Kristi Noem and Trump do not succeed in their efforts, when this is over, Trump's going to prison. They're going to go after Kash and Dan. They're going to accuse them of illegal activities. They're going to accuse them of weaponizing government. This is the thing people need to understand. I don't care what Democrats are saying. They're lying. They've been lying. The arrest of these judges, we can see why. Now let's see them convicted, of course, in a court of law with the evidence. But we know for a fact the Biden administration has, the Democrats can and will go after their political opponents unjustly. So yeah, I firmly believe that if in the end, in 4 years from now, the Trump administration accomplished nothing, they failed to deport, Democrats win back power, they will convene panels and hearings, they will immediately indict Kash and Dan and whoever else and say that they were working alongside a criminal government under Trump. They'll begin using that pretext to reverse Trump policies, bring people back. They're going to say, I mean, this has just begun, right? But take a look at the Abrego Garcia story, where they're lying to insinuate this man is an American citizen by saying he's a Maryland man. They will create a false history where they will say to Kristi Noem, you oversaw the illegal kidnapping and rendition of a Maryland resident to a torture dungeon. Jail. It's gonna be like in Dark Knight Rises, when you've got the court of the people, and they just bring people in and they're like, you're guilty.
Oh, kangaroo courts. Those always concern me. The idea of fast tracking courts. I think it's going to be 8. If you get it 8 years, you take 8 years of economic reform, and we're actually getting bread cheaper. I think that the people will be on the side of what's happening right now.
I think, when I talk to these classic libs, I did a sit down with the trigonometry guys a while ago. I don't know when they're putting that interview up. But even Rogan, to a certain degree, they live in this world of if Trump does something that is over the line, Democrats will do it next and they'll do it to you. And it's like, I don't think they understand. The Democrats are going to do it no matter what we do.
Yeah. Josie, you said constitutional crisis. And I know it just sounds like, okay, we've been in so many crises these days, but that's like a big deal as far as I can tell. I mean,
it's the loophole. They were able to put all of these federal judges in. This is why elections are important, because this.
Oh my gosh. Dude, that was my phone's AI just picked up and started talking to me, and I have the volume down.
Creepy.
Sorry about that, Josie.
That's okay.
Was it trying to get into the conversation and argue something?
Yeah, it was like, Ian, shut up. No, I don't know. I just shut it off. I don't know what it was saying.
It was like, Ian, you're rolling ones.
It's like, Ian,
sounds
step it up.
like you're.
For the Culture War Live, we're getting little signs printed up that are D20s, and on one side is a 1 and the other side is a 20.
Yeah.
So when people are debating, people can hold them up.
Oh, holler.
Yeah.
Okay, Josie, sorry. That was a...
I completely forgot what I was saying.
That was the technocrats that
He
did that.
was asking about the constitutional crisis and what it means.
Okay, so they were able to get all of these federal judges in, and I said this is why elections are important, because the Senate confirms the judges. So Mitch McConnell, for all of his faults, and there are many, 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 many faults, he did get 10,000 conservative judges approved in his time. So that's great. That was
But I don't know how much that means, because are they populist judges or are they elitist uniparty shill conservatives?
It's probably a mix, I would guess. But they're not progressive judges, which we have seen the progressive judges. And that's the thing, because, yeah.
So intervention, but no sterilizing kids?
Pretty much.
I don't know how I feel about it.
It's
like they're both really bad.
Yeah. It's not great. We're not in a great place. But they were able to find this sort of loophole in the Constitution, which is one of the very few that I see personally that can't be remedied. And they were able to exploit it by putting all their people in and saying there's no repercussions. You're never going to impeach these people.
Pack the courts. Mm-hmm. I pack the court right now, because if Trump doesn't, Democrats will.
The Supreme Court?
That's the last place. The Supreme Court is the last place that's not completely captured. We still have, it's not looking good with how Amy Coney Barrett's been and how Justice Robert has been. You could look at it and say, okay, well, it does look like it's 4-5 right now, but packing it is we're going to pack it. Say they put 14 in. The Democrats are going to get in power and they'll put 19 in.
It'll be endless.
And that's gonna slow down rulings. That's gonna make things chaotic. And in that time, when there are 19 Democratic judges sitting on there, Second Amendment is gone.
So here's the issue. The way it was supposed to work in this country is that there was a federal circuit for each Supreme Court justice. We had 9 circuits, so we have 9 justices. However, we added more states and expanded the territories, and now we have 13 circuits and still 9 justices, which means John Roberts oversees the 4th, Clarence Thomas the 11th, Alito the 3rd, Sotomayor oversees the 1st and the 2nd. You've got Kagan for the 5th, Gorsuch for the 10th, Kavanaugh for the D.C. Circuit, Amy Coney Barrett for the 7th Circuit, and Ketanji Brown Jackson for the 6th. The 9th Circuit is usually assigned to Kagan as well, but sometimes gets reassigned. So the argument from Democrats during Biden and during Obama was, we better pack the courts. We need 4 more justices right now so that there's a justice for each federal circuit. Trump must do this, in my opinion.
Well, some of those circuits are different sizes of people. So smashing 2 smaller circuits together might make sense. Maybe that's how they're doing it. And so to add another judge that has a small circuit wouldn't make any sense.
Don't care.
I think that the Supreme Court's kind of whack in general.
If Trump does not do it, Democrats will. I believe it is a 100% chance if Democrats at any point regain power, the first thing they'll do is pack the court.
They will. They will pack the court.
Because they will say never again to Donald Trump. And we can ensure this if we give ourselves a bulletproof majority in the Supreme Court. And then they're going to just ram through law by SCOTUS ruling, which is unconstitutional and shouldn't be done.
I mean, it's clear that the Democrats do want single party rule. They don't see the value of having opposing viewpoints at all. And you see it in the way the party acts, like the people on the ground act. they excommunicate people for having the wrong opinion. If you have a dissenting opinion, they're like, oh well, you're persona non grata.
They're
we'll cancel
a cult.
you. And so it stands to reason that they would see government like that as a good thing, even though you can look at a state like California, which has that single party rule, and see all the massive problems. Even though the governor is trying to walk away from that kind of constantly only listening to people in his own party. I mean, maybe it's for cynical reasons because he's looking to be the president, but it still doesn't change the fact that people are leaving California. There are people that are constantly criticizing California's government because it's failing the people.
You're making me think of David Hogg as you were talking about that, because he's DNC not head of DNC, like number
Vice
2,
chair.
vice chair of the DNC, and they're looking to push the guy out because he challenged the Uniparty, basically like, welcome to the Democratic Party, bro. Super delegates, you have no power in that party. They pick
I know,
and
it's funny.
choose.
I love it.
And I'm glad that it's Hogg because he's got a lot of influence. He's has a very liberal upbringing and has been through a shocking experience at Parkland with the school shooting that he was a part of, involved in, and it just transformed his.
Wait, what?
He was there when it happened.
Oh, he wasn't
there.
Oh, I thought he was in the
He's at
school.
home.
Okay, so
He's
He rode his bike to the school.
one of the more vocal people involved with that coming out of it.
Let's
activism.
clarify. I believe he was somewhere at the school, nowhere near the shooting, and went home. And then when he found out that they were doing interviews, he jumped on his bike and went as fast as he could to the school to give interviews.
I think he's going to be somebody. I have a lot of compassion for him in general, just because I think he's going to be someone that is going to have an arc where he leaves the Democratic Party and realizes how vile it was, and then just starts speaking out about what he believes. And that's a good opportunity to.
That's a very charitable position to hold.
Yeah, like look at the way they're treating that. He's like he's not Bernie Sanders. He's getting the Bernie Sanders treatment right now, from what I can tell.
Well, like the DNC, there's a reason though, but the DNC is supposed to worry about getting Democrats elected over Republicans, not which Democrats are in positions of power. Like once you've got a Democrat in a seat, to challenge that seat and possibly lose that seat because of the challenge is a bad thing for the vice chair of the Democrat DNC to do.
Just for the sake of clarity, he was David Hogg was at the school during the shooting. They heard gunshots and were redirected by a janitor and then hidden. A culinary arts teacher sheltered them in a closet. He filmed a bunch of videos, got out safely, and went home, and then rode his bike back to the school after dark and gave interviews.
Okay.
Okay, that's
It's when I was younger too, it's easy to be like use socialism to try and solve problems, but you learn as you get older a lot of times that you got to take personal responsibility and protect your local environment. And if everyone's doing that, you don't really need socialism because you're all working together through this decentralized unity to protect the environment.
I say we just rapidly introduce Neuralink AI technology as fast as we can, and bestowed upon Democrats. They'll be happy, and then they'll live in the pod and eat the bugs.
Or we could not.
What do you mean?
It sounds like a terrible idea.
To have all the Democrats choose to go into the pods and eat the bugs and leave us alone?
I mean,
that resolves all problems for everybody. Trans people can live in a reality where they're women, and then they're not voting in our elections. The right can have babies and live and go to church. Everybody's happy.
I feel like you're just trying to make the Borg.
That's what I'm thinking too.
I didn't say they would have any control over these environments.
Somebody would have control.
Like, bro, if you ever when you know what happens when you're playing in World of Warcraft and you try using mods to cheat, the admins come and boot you out of the game. So they'll have no authority over it. It'll be run by us, and we'll say, don't worry, we will do everything in our power to make sure you're happy and comfortable as you own nothing, live in the pod and eat the bugs. But don't worry. Don't feel shame from living in the pod and eating the bugs, because in your private little universe, you're the dragon slayer Vanmark who rides at night and shines the golden sword.
They'd all be just perverse furries. They'd all be just disgusting.
Well, but true. But sometimes it would be perverted, disgusting garbage as they pretend to be Vanmark, the paladin of the
So
dragon.
hypothetical, if there was like a political movement that took on Neuralink and then they had a hive mind, would you then take on a hive mind with another movement to try and challenge it?
No.
Because I feel like that's an unstoppable force, a hive mind. Like the Borg is unstoppable almost.
No, the vulnerability of hive minds is the susceptibility of viruses. The strength of a decentralized system is if a portion of that decentralized system is corrupt, it doesn't spread as rapidly and can be prevented.
I feel like David Hogg's loyalties. He wouldn't become a libertarian. He wouldn't become a conservative. He'd get more radical to the left. I feel like he would have a better chance of becoming Hitler than Donald Trump.
I agree completely. No, but I mean that legitimately. When I see someone who I view as has the potential to be really Hitler-esque, it's David Hogg.
Yes.
He is a narcissistic sociopath who is driven by attention and power. He doesn't care what's true, because if he did, he'd look up what's true, or he knows it's true and he's lying intentionally for power. So he comes off as really sociopathic and on a quest for power.
He's,
AOC as well.
He's kind of young. Hogg is what is he, like,
Yeah.
24 at this point? 24. He's still got time. Give it like 3 or 4 years. I was definitely like not a communist, but I was like, we can all do this together. We are all one. Follow me. I will save us. Revolution, that kind of mindset up until like age 29, when I realized like, oh, we can 3D print guns. You can't control people anymore. I think Hogg, hopefully it's kind of like, it's not predestined. You know, we can have him here on a show. You can have conversations with him. We change together. But he is like the kind of guy that's super influential. And if you just send him off into the nether to go build a movement alone with his cohorts, it could be very dangerous. It's not just David; it's people in that position.
I wonder how influential he actually is. I mean, obviously he's got a lot of followers.
I don't think he is,
but I don't know that he's. Yeah, I don't know that he's actually. He's not an opinion maker.
I actually don't find him to be particularly influential. He's been sitting around 1 million followers forever on X. It's a big amount, don't get me wrong, but it's not growing. He's not building a base. This is like, what is this, 6-7 years? He's had that amount of followers. He's not advanced his influence in any meaningful way. Name the other vice chairs of the DNC, you can't. He's as prominent as they are. Just we know his name because he's easy to pick on. And I do mean that. He's probably 100 pounds soaking wet. So when he goes on TV and doesn't know what he's talking about and looks stupid, it's an easy target for conservatives.
I drag him mercilessly at least once a month. So.
You know, Dean Withers apparently has given up, and he's just now taken to doing podcasts with random people who have no idea what they're talking about.
I saw him with a Charlie Kirk event. That might have been an old video. I just saw it today.
Yeah, that was Jubilee, wasn't it?
So
I don't know. He's trying to get an interview, but Charlie wouldn't talk to him. Oh. I don't know when it was from, though.
So what, he's trying to debate people or talk to people or interview anybody?
The clips that I'm seeing people share, it's no longer like he got a big boost when he was like yelling at Charlie Kirk or somebody.
That was the Jubilee thing I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's like the videos that people are sharing of him is him talking to like random people on the street. So he's doing that.
Man on the street stuff.
Yeah, but he's also got podcast clips where he's like in a room doing a podcast talking to someone who's like a random nobody, who's just like, I don't know, I voted for Trump. It's like, why? And it's like, oh, I don't know. And it's like, oh. You know, so I don't think, you know, people really thought that he had something, this Dean Withers guy, and then he kind of just fell off. And I think he's too scared to actually engage in the actual political space.
Like he feels like his position's tenuous at the moment.
No, but I mean, look at Harry Sisson and who's that other guy, Mowry or whatever. These guys, these guys are largely afraid of going into actual political spaces.
I think Dean's different, though.
This is why I think Politicon failed. Do you guys remember Politicon? It's, for those that don't know, it was a political debate convention for the most part. It was panels were had between various individuals of different backgrounds. But it's just going to be conservatives because these younger liberals are terrified to actually engage in these conversations because they end up looking like Luke Beasley did on this show. And now he doesn't want to come back. He doesn't want to do any debates. He won't do it. We've said anybody you want. They don't want to do it. We do have success with smaller, less well-known liberals because they don't have anything to lose.
It's hard to be influential in that space because they can't really think for themselves. They have to follow a very specific script. If they go out of line, then, you know, the cult comes for them and they're like, nope, you can't say that. You can't do that. You know, I think on a previous show, Tim, you talked about like abortion, for instance. You could be the biggest communist in the world, but then you're like, maybe there should be a limit on abortion. It's like, nope, you're out.
Yeah, you could. Jimmy Dore. He's the example we use all the time. I mean, dude's a socialist economically, and he's called right wing. Like the left calls him a right winger. It makes no sense.
As soon as you start to explore reality, I mean, almost any of these conspiracy theories, not any by any means, but like 9/11 for me, the war in Iraq, weapons of mass destruction. You start to go down that. It's just this whole liberal economic sham becomes apparent. You start to see the lines and the outlines of it all, and Like, how can I live a lie? I cannot live a lie.
So this is the issue with these liberal personalities and why they don't do shows. Because if you are to sit down in a chair where everybody has a computer pulled up and a monitor where we display, I mean, I got a monitor in front of me, there's a monitor behind Ian, and a gigantic TV on the wall showing this story that you are seeing on the screen now. So when I think one of the big moments on this show was when Hunter Avallone came on, and I said, well, look, Joe Biden said, if you don't fire the prosecutor, you're not getting the $1 billion. And he smugly went, that never happened. And this kid actually thought so he was lied to. The liberals were saying that never happened. So he genuinely believed it. And then I went, okay. And I pulled the video up and literally 30 seconds and pressed play and said, yeah, you were wrong about that. Now what? And it's humiliating.
He doesn't have any talking points. He had to be wrong about that because it just simply didn't happen. So there's no script.
So what happens when you're like 20 years old, you build up a big following based on liberal talking points. And then when you start actually building out your business, you start to realize you're wrong about a lot of things. And then you realize I can't actually go on any of those conservative shows because how do you lie about something that is basically true? Like Abrego Garcia, Maryland man. So what happens when you go on that show and say, okay, you're calling a Maryland resident, a Maryland man, he's from El Salvador. He's accused of beating his wife. And then they're like, now they're all backing away. You see the Democrats being like, oh, it's not about him. When the Democrats first got on board with that, it very much was about the Maryland father who was wrongly deported. Hassan Piker, do you know this? He did not know the guy was from El Salvador. He thought he was from Maryland.
If they were just honest and said, look, the guy may not be a great guy, but we're worried about due process. If they'd have just gone with that line, right, it would have been at least tolerable, and the right wouldn't have been able to mock the Democrats so mercilessly. They wouldn't have had so much egg on their face.
Here's why people like Dean Withers would rather do a man on the street than actually come on this show, because he was booked, and then he canceled and said he would reschedule and never did. Because what he's doing now is he walks up to a random person and says, what was Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felonies. Why? And then the regular person's like, I don't know. I heard that. I think it's probably not true. It's like, what's not true about it? And they're like, I don't know. It just seems like they're weaponizing against him. And he goes, how? And it's like, okay, Dean, come on this show. And from memory, I will break down the entirety of that case for you. That's why liberals avoid shows like this. Mm-hmm. And that's why, even though my politics may be like moderate, liberal leaning in some areas, they call me right wing. It's why Jimmy Dore, a socialist, is called right wing. And that's why when Hassan humiliated himself when he played the clip of my White House press briefing question, and he was like, what do you mean, bro? Like, you actually saying he's not from Maryland? Like he's from D.C.? And then he's like, centrist liberal Tim Pool. Yeah. It's like, my dude. Hassan genuinely believed the guy was from Maryland. He didn't know the guy was from El Salvador. And then because of that, he thought Tim Pool's not a centrist liberal. When all I did was say, here is a thing that is true, like fact-based, that the media is lying about. Hassan chose to believe the media and made the assumption I was lying about what the media was reporting. He trusts the media when I was calling out the lies from the media.
I had my red pilling reality shattering happened in 2007 before I had any kind of following. I had like 4,000 followers on YouTube. It was big at the time, but it was humiliating, and I had to learn in real time in public. And because of that humility, I feel much stronger in my beliefs now. But for someone to have 66 million, 600,000 followers, that amount of humiliation to realize that not everything, but things you've been saying for decade, 5 years is wrong, is like, how you going to eat that one, bro? And Tim, I want to ask you, what was your red pilling like? Like, how did you start to see past the narrative?
I never had a red pilling.
Did you always, since 9/11? Like, how far back did you
I mean, actually, I'll put it this way. I did not have a moment most would describe as like a red pilling moment where they were like, I'm a Democrat. Then like Brandon Strzok describes how he felt physical pain, realized he was wrong. But I've had many formative moments. So the story I often tell is that, I grew up Catholic, family basically walked away from the church. I became an angsty teenage atheist, punk rock, all that stuff. And then when I was 18, I was hanging out with this guy, went to his house to like chill and jam. And he was like a prominent skateboarder. So this is super cool. It's like I was going to hang out with the cool kids. And he had a picture of Jesus on his wall. And then I was like, what are you, like a Christian or something? He's like, nah. And I was like, then why do you have Jesus on your wall? And he said, I just thought a story about a guy go around helping people was kind of cool. And then I was like, that was a formative moment for me That maybe you could describe as a red pill moment where I realized all the things that's probably it. That's probably a way to describe it. That all of these angsty, atheist, liberal, urban narratives didn't actually encompass what someone who actually liked Jesus thought. So here's a guy who wasn't a Christian, didn't go to church, didn't think anything other than, I don't know, there's a story about a guy who like helped people. And then I started to think about it for a second and I was like, yeah, that's actually kind of okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And that was probably the moment, if I was 18, that was probably the moment where I was like, yeah, all that stuff they're pushing forward about what it means to be Christian. Because I was very much like on the watching Real Time with Bill Maher and all that stuff.
And then you just
urban liberal.
That then kind of like shattered your, or that then allowed you to start to see that Borgish mentality elsewhere.
So I will say this: I have known of Alex Jones for a very long time since I was a teenager, because I was on the internet my whole life since I was a little kid. So like I had friends that were talking about Info or Prison Planet, I think was the website, and then of course there was Loose Change and Loose Change 9/11. I think I was like. When the I don't know how old I was, 16 or 17, when the 9/11 truth stuff was getting popular online. So I had seen Alex Jones stuff all the time. So I had a general understanding that the media was full of it and lying all the time. And but that's why I say that I don't have like a traditional red pill moment. But I do think that moment I described where I realized that this urban liberal angsty atheist narrative was not really conveying what Christians actually believed. There's another moment where I was hanging out with this chick in the suburbs when I was like 17. So this is even before that. And they were Christian, Catholic, pro-life. And we were having dinner. Like they invited me to the house to hang out and they cooked dinner. And then they explained that they were pro-life. And I asked them what that meant and they told me. And I was like, oh. And then I was like, that kind of exposure, I think, probably insulated me from the more Trump derangement syndrome mentality, you know? Like I already knew some of these people. I knew they weren't Hitler for believing the things they believed.
I got to ask you the same question, Josie. What was your path towards breaking the psychological mold?
Ron Paul. So I grew up in Massachusetts and I never really fit in Massachusetts. I tried to fit in different ways. In high school, I joined the Gay Straight Alliance, you know, just so I could kind of feel out different people in different groups, and nothing really worked. I'm not gay, by the way. I'm straight, but still, so then 9/11 happens, and I'm in high school, and a lot of people around me were all of a sudden really like, we're going to go to war. We're going to get this. We're gonna go to war, and this is good. And I remember thinking in my heart, this isn't good. This isn't good. I don't. Something doesn't work right. I don't know. This doesn't feel right to me. It didn't feel right to be pro-war. It didn't feel right to be an activist. Nothing felt right. And then it was 2012 when I found Ron Paul, and I was like, this feels right. And so I don't know if it was really a red pill moment. It was just a moment where every view that I had, the way that I am, who I was my whole life just made sense because I found my people, I found my tribe.
Were you political from 2001 to 2010?
No, I wasn't. I sort of started dipping my feet into it in 2012, but I didn't start the Redheaded Libertarian until December 2017. So there was a period of time where I was still politically homeless because there wasn't a Ron Paul that I could really attach to. So I found Rand Paul, and I'm like, okay, I like him, you know, like his Filibuster the Patriot Act. I think that was 2014. And so I was like, I like this guy, and I was following this guy now, you know. So it really came to the point where Trump got elected, and I'm living in Massachusetts still, and everybody is insane. Everybody lost their minds. And I'm like, why is everybody crazy about this? This is like, I just couldn't understand it. And so I had a friend who was like, well, you should maybe go on Twitter at the time. He's like, you know, you'll find people to talk to. You find people, like-minded people. And so I'm like, okay. So I just wanted to get on Twitter and make like a couple of friends that I could talk to. And I accidentally made a lot of friends.
Like doused your mind with a new form of consciousness.
Accidentally made a lot of friends.
Yeah, I had no intention of this ever happening.
I don't know. The libertarians kind of went nuts, though.
Yeah.
I've gone nuts.
Yeah,
It's a good domestic policy, but it doesn't work geopolitically.
This is why I'm really aligning myself with the founders, and because it's something I was always interested in, always loved. It was the Constitution. I understood it, and I could explain it. And I know a lot of people were never taught about it, and they weren't taught revolutionary history. They weren't taught accurate anything. So so it's something I'm like, all right, well, our founders were kind of the original, especially the anti-federalists. They were like the original states' rights libertarians, so I really lean into that. And the Federalists were more like Reagan Republicans, I guess, if I had to compare them to somebody. Not really that far, but there's really no good way to put it. Like Sam Adams was definitely a states' rights guy, but James Madison was more a little bit more federal. So there's a little differential, but that's why I lean into that as opposed to the crazy libertarian idea, like, oh, should there be an age of consent? Like the kind of libertarians that I want nothing to do with, I stay away from, and judge me by my enemies.
Yeah.
Well, we got a long show, but Phil, if you want to answer that same question, I've never really asked you about your road to perdition. Like, how did you snap out of it? Were you even ever in it? Because I remember you telling me you were like a Republican early, but what happened?
I mean, I'm coming from the music industry. I was kind of always a contrarian and being like, I would argue on like lambgoat.com. Well, I would argue politics on lambgoat.com. But I guess when I kind of was like, when I fully decided that the whole narrative that was coming out of the government was something not to be trusted was because of Ron Paul and the Iraq War. In 2008, I was a Ron Paul guy. And same thing in 2012. I was a Ron Paul guy too. So it was definitely the whole Ron Paul revolution and stuff that kind of brought me out of it. Because
you know what I think was a big deal for a lot of people that led to the Ron Paul stuff was Loose Change 9/11 second edition.
What was the difference in the edition?
The first edition didn't really catch on and go viral. The second edition with minor updates was like, not that I agree or believe it's all true, but it was entertainment, and everybody I knew was burning it to DVDs and sharing with each other.
Zeitgeist was a
Zeitgeist.
It still is amazing. Watch that movie if you haven't seen it.
Yes.
Yeah. And so those two films went viral on burned CDs. Like, people were so compelled by these that they would burn CDs with them and share them, or DVDs. And I remember when I worked at O'Hare, someone brought it in and they were like, have you guys seen this Loose Change thing? We're going to play it. And then they played it in the break room. And like, I'd seen it online. But that spreading around, I think, helped create the Ron Paul revolution.
Yeah, he started talking about blowback. When I heard him say the word blowback on the presidential state where he was running for president, and he started talking about it in front of Obama and Hillary, or no, whoever he was running against at the time.
The Republicans.
Yeah, that was...
He was in the primary.
It was like I knew it. I knew what he was saying was true, and I'd already kind of believed that was the case, but to hear it was like, it was terrifying. I was terrified of Ron Paul. He struck me as like Darth Vader about to bring balance to the Force, and I was like terrified of what that meant. But it was like he was just explaining the inevitable, and we're living in it now.
Do you think David Hogg, Maury, or Sisson knows what it means to burn a CD?
Probably not.
Maybe get a match.
Pretty sure
couple
no,
matches.
because
I don't know.
By the time they were even old enough to comprehend the
matches?
function of burning, DVDs had already taken over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I imagine the response would be something along the lines of Hillary's, what do you mean, like with a cloth? Like, what do you mean, like with matches?
You know what was fun? Turning on the radio, and then they announced that, like, up next, we're going to play, like, Plush. And then you'd be like, oh, and you'd have to put the cassette tape in and hit record.
I would sit by it waiting, and you get if you miss, you get the end of the song before. So a lot of songs, I still think of the song before. In them.
And then you'd have like your mixtape you made from all the different radio stations to record on the cassette.
Yeah. Jack Posobiec, he calls us centennials. That's what he calls kind of the
centennials,
the older millennials. He calls us centennials. So it's people who understand, because this is a micro generation that many of us are in, and it essentially is, we had to go from analog to digital. Mm-hmm. And we had to learn both in middle school and high school. Yeah. So this puts us kind of in a we have advantages in some ways. Like, look at me, I still take paper notes, instead of doing whatever on my computer. So it just it gives us an advantage, but it also puts us in just a weird little group. It's like a 7-year group of centennials.
That's really interesting to think of generations, because time is motion, and the speeding up of information transfer is like speeding up time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And AI, like the kids that are born with this tech are almost a different generation. Whatever that word even means.
But it is.
Generation.
Well, so the technological advancements shape generations massively. And but you make a good point about the speeding up the transfer of information is condensing time. Think about what it was like in 1776. Mm-hmm. Think about when they declared independence.
Took 6 weeks to get to England.
And then, even when it got to England, it didn't necessarily mean that Parliament and the Crown had a chance to thoroughly review it.
Nope.
And then the king reads it and he's like...
He laughed at it.
Yeah, and then it's got to go... There's probably, how many weeks of review from the British government, and then how long until the response came back? Mm-hmm. 6 weeks is actually pretty quick, to be honest.
Yeah. It got there pretty fast. It came back, and the first thing... They were already redcoats stationed, so the reason... why we had the Boston Tea Party and why we had the Boston Massacre was because Massachusetts was militarized. What had happened is they had passed the
Intolerable Acts.
First they'd passed the Stamp Act, the Sugar Act, and the Townshend Acts. And before they passed the Townshend Acts, they're like, all right, people were rioting. We don't want that to happen again. So we're going to send a military over there to keep things in order. And so by the time that the Townshend Acts were passed, and this was 1767, the Townshend Acts were passed, and there was 2,000 redcoats stationed in Boston. And so that's why they were rioting. That's why everybody was so mad. And then what had happened is they were just having one of their normal riots out for the Boston Massacre. They were having one of their normal riots out in front of a store of a loyalist. And the guy that was guarding the store, the informant, he got all rattled and he ended up shooting into the crowd and he shot a little boy. This was February 22nd of 1770. Shot a little boy. The little boy dies. His name was Christopher Snyder. So after that, there were riots every day. Riots, building and building. And then March 5th was the Boston Massacre, and that was just another riot that they were out there. And it just, the redcoats got nervous, and they shot into the crowd again, and that's what happened.
What I learned about the whole lead up to the Revolutionary War is that it was like 1750, and the British were basically like not governing the colonies at all. The colonies were on their own for the 100 years that they'd been around or whatever. And then the British were like, okay, if we don't take these guys seriously, we're going to lose that territory to the French, because they were French were militarized up north, yep. Spanish were militarized down south. British were like, we need to go put troops in the Americas. So they sent all these British troops. And the colonists like, what the fuck? Get out of my country. We've been doing this for 100 years, bro. Get out. But the British are like, no, we need to protect our land. And then they decided, in order to pay the troops, they started taxing the colonists because they couldn't afford.
And taking their homes.
And that was, so this taxing to make the colonists pay for their own subjection.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just too much culture shock in 20 years.
The first major tax was 1734, I believe, and it was the molasses tax. And so when they brought down the sugar tax, this next one, they're like, okay, well, we're going to cut the molasses tax. But then they started taxing everything. And they were taxing right down to a piece of paper was taxed. If you were using a piece of paper, we're taxing you by the piece of paper. So this was very tyrannical, what they were doing there and what the colonists were living through. And
it was like inevitable. Mm-hmm. It seems like nothing the British could have done could have kept the colonies.
And what Tim had brought up with the Intolerable Acts, what those were is the punishment for the Boston Tea Party, which was just we were a powder keg at this point. It was just waiting to go off after the Boston Massacre. It was a little bit quiet for a couple years, but it was just building this patriotism.
Now isn't that crazy though?
Mm-hmm.
Years. The Revolutionary period was what, about 20 some odd years?
The Revolutionary period, yeah. I mean, if you want to start at the sugar, that was 1763, and it didn't end until the Bill of Rights in 1791.
And
revolutions are long.
The Declaration of Independence wasn't written, signed, and declared until 13 months after the war already started.
Yeah. Yep. That was 1775.
People think that the Founding Fathers got together and were like, let's declare independence. And then they did. And then the Crown was like, I declare war on you for doing this. No, actually, war was declared on the colonists first. And they largely did not organize much for about a year. So it was, or I should clarify, because that's a subjective view of it. But they did not declare a formalized country until a year later. 13 months. Mm-hmm. And what was it? It was July 2nd?
July 2nd. And then they reviewed everything on July 3rd and then July 4th day. And they didn't even sign the declaration until I think August 8th. Like they actually sign it, but we still celebrate on the 4th. But the Intolerable Acts were laid down after the Boston Tea Party. And these, what King George did, and many of the grievances in the Declaration of Independence are about the Intolerable Acts. Yeah. And what King George did, he wiped out their government essentially, and he put his own people in as the governor. He put his own people in at judge, jurists. Like, it was not fair anymore. He closed down Boston Harbor and said, you can't open this until you repay the East India Company every penny. And I mean, the Boston Tea Party was because of the fascism between the East India Company and King George. They were in bed together. They weren't paying any taxes. They were getting fully reimbursed on all their product, and they were really undermining the entrepreneurs, John Hancock and Sam Adams. So that was a big.
So here's a funny little bit of trivia. John Adams wrote, "The second day of July 1776 will be the most memorable epocha in the history of America. I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade and shoes, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore."
Mm-hmm.
July 4th?
July 2nd.
July 2nd.
July 2nd?
Yeah.
And that's because why?
That's when they signed the Declaration of Independence.
Oh.
Yeah.
But then why do they say July 4th is Independence Day?
That's when people knew it happened.
Oh.
Yep.
That it was officially in record. Like, we do a lot of things and then it gets submitted to courts and then it gets like officially. So there are, I'll say this without getting into specifics on lawsuits. I've been involved in lawsuits and my lawyer will be like, the lawsuit is filed. They have notice. Don't say anything until the court publishes it. And then like 3 days later, the court publishes it and then the press gets it.
So should we celebrate July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th?
I think we're doing.
I think we should celebrate July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th.
Yeah, MAGA month.
MAGA month. It is the whole month that we celebrate.
Well, just to tap off the combo about time dilation and how, the speeding up of data transfer is like, squishing these generations together. I don't know if there's even any way to tie it back into what we're talking about, that it takes 2 days for people to know that something got signed. Right now, it takes 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. It's a very different world. A revolution can happen very quickly relative to what it used to do.
Technically, like I just described, you can submit official documents to a court and they don't publish it in the public record for 3 days or longer.
And just because the information is available doesn't mean the information is spread particularly
Ian,
fast.
Did you know that retirements in the government are handled by going down into a limestone cavern?
Yeah. We got to
talk. The speed of technology and the speed of government are two very different things.
Yeah. Yeah. They were telling me that there's no parking down there. Certain Homeland Security, it's like there's no parking. I'm like, this is the American government and there's no parking spaces? I was like, yeah. But we have super secret underground science bases.
Mount Weather and Raven Rock.
Like they know where to put money, but it's definitely not at like parking spaces, I guess.
They're down the street from us.
Who is?
Raven Rock and Mount Weather.
What is it?
Bro, are you kidding?
I don't know Raven Rock.
You've never played Fallout 3?
I have played Fallout 3, yeah.
Did you beat Fallout 3?
No.
Oh, okay.
I do all the side quests, so I get
because that's where the Enclave is in Raven Rock.
Okay.
It's the emergency bunker for government officials.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where is it relative to DC?
West. Well, northwest. So, like, it's close to where we are.
Yeah, dude.
You can look it up on the map. You got a computer on you?
Yeah.
You can look up where it's at. They started doing renovations and expansion.
I have breaking news.
What happened?
Top Epstein accuser Virginia Guffrey dies by suicide per NBC News. This was Nick Sorter just reported this.
Whoa.
She'd been suffering some sort of health conditions, I've heard.
Oh, something was very alarming that was going on with her that nothing added up with that.
Yeah, this broke a half an hour ago. Yo, check this out. Virginia Giuffre, one of Jeffrey Epstein's most prominent abuse survivors, dies by suicide. I hate to ask this question, but I kind of have to. Does anyone believe it was suicide?
No.
I do. She'd been
unless,
suffering the last 6 months from what I was reading.
How did she get hit by that car?
Yeah, she got hit by the car and then she lived. And then she made the whole statement saying, well, I'm ready to go, but I need to see my kids first. And that was really, you know what? You're a mother. You're never ready to go.
Does that sound like she was telling the people who were threatening her life, please let me see my kids one last time?
Yes, that's exactly what was.
What happened with the car accident?
Dude.
So she just got hit by it?
She got hit by a car in her car. I think she was in her car and they came at her at like 60, 70, 80 miles an hour and she lived.
And they told her your kidneys are failing and you have 4 days to live or something.
Yep. They said you have 4 days to live. Your kidneys are failing. She's like, okay, well, I've accepted that, but I want to see my kids. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. And now she dies by suicide. You know, they could have said, okay, well, we're going to do it or you can do it yourself. I don't know. I don't believe it.
Could it be that with Trump, with Pam Bondi and the Trump administration in, cash, and then they were saying, I believe, I don't want to speak for anybody, but I'm pretty sure they were talking about how like they're going to get these documents out. And they didn't. But now apparently they're sitting on these documents. They're going through them. Look, I hate to say this because there are people who know and love this woman who may be like, it legitimately was suicide. I don't know this. I'm just going to say this. No one will believe it.
Mm-hmm.
It might be that.
Considering the story right now with the Epstein documents in the Trump administration and how a lot of people are skeptical, but at the very least, if there ever was a being close to this, we are closer than ever before to these documents. And then Virginia Giuffre gets hit by a car.
That's the part I wonder about.
I was watching a clip from that show Goliath. You ever see that? It's I think it's a show. I don't know what it is, but there's a viral clip where Billy Bob is in court. He's suing, and the judge dismisses the case unjustly. So Billy Bob calls the judge corrupt. When they're leaving, this woman who's in the case, she's like, "So did we win or lose?" They're like, "Well, a little bit of both." And wham, a van slams into her and just kills her. Like, dude,
that's what I'm wondering about Virginia. So my take, which is ignorant, is that she was in such pain from the car accident, she decided to take her own life. But the car accident, did they catch the guy that hit her?
Hit by a school bus, and it was like out of nowhere.
That's right. It was going faster than a school bus is legally allowed to go.
And did they get the driver?
I don't know.
Doesn't sound that way. I mean, I feel like we would have heard it if they got the driver, but nope, it just happened. And
were the kids on the school bus?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Look, I mean, getting hit by a school bus, and like I said, it came out of nowhere, or it was like in the middle of nowhere when it happened. So,
she was out in the middle of like kind of nowhere when.
Yeah, if I understand correctly, yeah, it wasn't like it was it wasn't like
nothing about that story makes sense.
This is like his biggest accuser. This is the girl. I've been following her work for 4 years.
It is. Okay, so let's go back in time a little bit. Mike Cernovich saw that there was a defamation suit. I could be getting some of this wrong, but my general understanding is they had been trying to get information on the Epstein cases and they couldn't. There was a defamation case, and I believe Cernovich, I'm not sure I think he was working with, maybe it was Mark Randazza. I'm not entirely sure. So forgive me if I'm roping you into this and it wasn't you, but it might have been. And they filed a suit. I think it was a FOIA request or something like that to get the documents from this defamation case. And then when those documents, I believe it was the Miami Herald who then joined in and helped that effort, which exposed a lot of statements about Epstein and what he had been doing from Virginia Giuffre. This blew the lid off of Epstein. He was a free man at the time. Shortly after this is when he gets arrested. They start going after him. And I think at that point, when the story started breaking, here's my assumption. I don't know for sure. The people that Epstein had been blackmailing were largely staying away out of fear. When the news came down that because of what Cernovich and the Herald had been doing, the story was about to break, powerful individuals being blackmailed were like, oh God, no, get this contained. Arrest Epstein in a panic. He goes to this jail where he gets a cellmate who somehow Epstein gets mercilessly beaten but survives, and he has bruises on his neck. So then the guy's like, it wasn't me, don't look at me. Then they move Epstein to another cell. I'm pretty sure that cellmate died too. I'm not sure. Someone fact check me on that one. Then Epstein goes in the cell and ends his life with the cameras broken and the guards asleep.
He also said that he thought someone poisoned him, I think. 2 weeks before he died, he was like, they tried to poison me. I could be wrong about that.
Things get a little quiet. Ghislaine Maxwell is arrested. Now we're back in the Epstein story again with Pam Bondi, Cash Dan, and the FBI. So this is crazy. We had that story where Pam Bondi wrote a public letter saying that the FBI was withholding Epstein documents and hiding it from her, the attorney general. And she ordered Cash to get those documents. They report the documents were transferred and they were going through them, and they'll be released soon. Everyone's like, what's going on? I wonder if the people being blackmailed are like, if these documents come to light, they are going to subpoena Virginia Giuffre and ask her to speak more on the issue. And this is why you get a story like this.
How many other witnesses are going to come forward now? How many other victims are going to come forward now that the main victim has suicided herself?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. You need some evidence to get that.
Epstein had two different cellmates. Nicholas Tartagolian, who is alive. He was a former police officer. He was accused of quadruple murder. He was Epstein's cellmate in 2019 when Epstein was found semi-conscious with.
Okay, so that guy did not die.
That guy's alive. And then Efrain Reyes was his cellmate in the special housing unit in August 8, 2019, the day before Epstein's death. Reyes was transferred to private prison where he reportedly contracted COVID-19. According to a post from 2020, Reyes was found dead on November 27, 2020 at his mother's apartment in New York City with his death attributed to coronavirus.
Yeah. Okay, so I was...
Everything was coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yo, this is crazy. I'm telling you, like, he's freaky out there.
I don't want to speculate, but if you understand the way of the world, yes, I believe you're right.
I genuinely think this is likely happening. Like, Epstein was blackmailing people. He was probably working with some intelligence. Some people think he was working with Israeli intelligence. I don't know if the evidence corroborates that.
I think Ghislaine's father was Israeli intelligence, was he not?
I don't know. But I know that,
No one knows.
Dan Bongino on this show said some Middle Eastern intelligence or something to that effect. And we don't know for sure.
Oh, no, maybe it was British intelligence, her dad.
Maybe?
No, I think it was Israeli. I think,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Mossad.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Either way,
I think
this is crazy.
My take, and I don't even go too deep on this because, I want to live a healthy, happy, effective reality here. But I think Ghislaine's
you're the most dangerous.
Ghislaine's the mastermind.
When the dark forces come, they're like, Ian's the one we got.
I'm the tornado man.
They're like, he's the powerhouse of Timcast IRL. Tim Pool, he doesn't matter. No, it's Ian.
I'm the fluctuation, minute transference deep within.
What?
Well, here's the question for you. If staring down the barrel,
You're staring at the sun.
if you're staring down the barrel and you are told, if you continue this pursuit, you may expose the darkness or you may die a horrible, merciless death. Turn around right now and luxury and comfort awaits. Which do you choose?
Oh, brutal. Well, I guess it depends on what time of day you ask me that question and on what day.
Have I had breakfast?
I think the Epstein thing is,
hungry?
my general thoughts are that it's not, of course it's important, but it's not that important relative to what we really got going on with deep state economic disaster looming. So other people have said this too. They're like, the Epstein things, just forget about it. Don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. Don't hate about it. Like, focus on, tangible solutions. That's that's generally actually how I deeply feel, which is why I don't talk about this stuff very much. The Epstein stuff.
This is crazy, man.
What's the best that could happen if we found out?
Ghislaine's father was suicided. He commits suicide, but
these people have a in their families, like all the people in this sphere, they're very unwell.
Mm-hmm.
I think
depression runs in the family.
Yeah.
And their friends' families and their victims' families.
Well, a lot of people
and
who
the
seek-
investigative journalists they know families.
A lot of people who seek power,
Social contagion.
they have a narcissistic personality if they seek some kind of power, and that can transfer into cluster B, and that can transfer into all these other mental health issues, bipolar, for instance. So yeah, I guess it's not surprising that there's a high rate of suicide, but she still says that her dad was murdered since 1997 in an interview.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
And it's Israeli, so it's believed that he was Israeli, that intelligence, but he also is alleged to have connections to British and Soviet.
Here's a picture of Virginia Giuffre with
Prince Philip.
Yeah, is it Philip?
I think it's Andrew.
No, Prince
That's
Andrew.
Andrew.
Yeah, that's Prince Andrew.
I was like, I'm pretty sure it was the other guy.
There's old Ghislaine hanging out on.
I wonder if this prince whose life was ruined could somehow be involved in any
Who
of it.
knows?
Well, I don't know. I mean, his mom stripped him of all of his titles and
Yeah.
stuff, but I don't know what's going on now that his brother is running. His brother's got cancer. I don't know what's
Who's his
going
brother?
on.
The king?
The king.
Yeah.
His brother's the king?
Yep. So I don't know
England?
if anything's been lifted or replaced or something to
King
heal
of
the
England's-
family. I don't know.
The King of England's brother was in a picture with Virginia Giuffre. That's
And
Yeah.
also was stripped of his titles and stuff by his mother because of this stuff. So like he was accused, and the royal family's like, all right, we're not. Like he didn't get like excommunicated from the family. They stripped him of all kinds of titles, and they didn't have him doing anything officially because of the Epstein connections. So
they strip him of his not just titles, but his what do they call it what you get when people die? Or
he was not in
Prince
line
here.
he was not in line to the throne.
or like his duchies or anything he was going to
what?
get his duchies or
What's
counties. Like a duchy is a bunch of counties. You'll have a count that that rules over a county. Then you'll have a duke that rules over like a multitude of counties called a duchy.
Oh, okay.
They'll give those to their kids. Like Prince Harry is the duke of this and that.
Yeah, I mean, those are largely just titles now, because they have elected officials because they have a parliamentary system over there. The monarchy is mostly for show.
Seems like here.
Here. Order. Order. Someone told me to do that.
Oh, that's awesome.
They said, Tim, bang the hammer and tell them we're going to chats, Rumble Rants, and Super Chats.
and Rumble Rants.
Smash the like button, my friends. Share the show with everyone you know. Let's see what you guys have to say because your insight is invaluable. And that's true. We often reference Super Chats and member call-ins on the show later on because people notice things we don't. They're not here. And that's why we're doing the Culture War Live May 3rd, where you guys, as members of the Timcast Discord, get to come on stage. And I think we have 8 slots allotted, but it's no guarantee we actually get 8 people up on stage to debate. Let me say this. If you are planning on debating and submitting your view on things, here's an important piece of advice. The debate is going to be Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Was he legally allowed to be deported? Was the deportation correct? How should Trump handle deportations? And then we're going to bring you guys up to add to the mix. If you are going to submit a debate talking point, you will likely be selected if you are referencing something specific that we have not considered. So if you submit something where you're just like, I think he should have been deported regardless of the withholding of deportation because we have too many illegal immigrants. We may bring you up, just depending, but just understand that's probably the first thing that will be said by someone else already on this. Like that's we're going to be doing a half an hour of open discussion to kick off the show. And if your opinion is largely what has been discussed already, you're not going to want to come up and just say the same thing someone's already said. So consider that. What we're looking for is people who have insights or ideas that are either counter. Maybe it's a third position. Maybe you're like, we should be sending them to Alaska to work the lithium mines or something. I don't know. But, that's how you do it. Let's go. Shinich Wilder says, Josie's on a vacation far away. Judge Hannah Dugan's career is over. There's nothing she can say. Shouldn't have tried to screw ice over Dungan's going to be in jail tonight. Okay.
You're supposed to sing it, Tim.
I don't know what the song is.
Josie's on a vacation far away.
Oh, okay, I get it. Well, all right then. Jacob Holly says, protesting bad here in Milwaukee. The insane partisanship here in Wisconsin is horrendous. It's reached our small towns, and now neighbors are spraying swastikas on each other's cars. Hot and help needed. Jeez. So if we were to track all of the insane things that have happened over the past 8 years, where does this go? I mean, like, we're at the point now where the Democrats have already arrested lawyers and politicians, and now the Trump admin is arresting judges, as I think they should. But I don't think Democrats are going to sit back and just accept it. They're going to say, hey, he's a fascist, he's Nazis, we got to do something, and they're going to escalate.
I still am of the opinion that without the normies in the street protesting to give the crazies and the people that want to throw firebombs and stuff, without the normies to give them cover, it stays far less intense than the Summer of Love was. I don't see mass protests by normal people because they can go to work and they have to go to work and they're not as fired up. I mean, Trump won the popular vote, so they're not as fired up. There's not the same, phony narrative flowing out there about the Trump administration that there was about how police treated black men in America in 2020. Remember, you ask the average person, they were thinking that like thousands of black men per year were being killed. Thousands of unarmed black men per year were killed by police.
There's 20.
Thousands, And it was like 15 or 20. But the point is, without that sense of actual injustice, right? That even though it wasn't actually happening, without the belief of that injustice, I don't think you get normies out of work to go onto the streets to protest. And without normies, you don't get the protests to cover for the riots.
Yeah, and it was like the summer of COVID, basically. And you see him like kind of fishing these like a new virus, and you'll see like a news article, and it's just like no one cares, dude. No.
Well, yeah. Now it's like if there's anything that happens this summer or whatever will happen this summer will be lower intensity, and it'll be stuff like the firebombing of Tesla, Tesla dealerships and stuff. But it won't be that every city has a big riot. And look, man, I really, really, really hope I'm right, because if I'm wrong, then I could see significant bad results from that,
All right. Phalanx says the charges on the New Mexico judge are pure cowardice. Those two were providing aid and comfort to enemies of the USA, charge them with treason, and let them try to defend it. That's interesting. I don't know if we correct me. I don't know if you know this, but can a gang or an organization be considered a wartime enemy of the United States?
Yes.
But I know we have letters of marque to target rogue groups like this, but we don't declare war on them.
It's a incursion. It's a predatory incursion or an invasion. It's very specific, the language that has to be used for the president to declare something like that. This responsibility, this power was handed over in 1798 to the executive from Congress. And so that's why the president on day one declared an invasion, and he didn't declare a war. He doesn't really have to declare a war to do that.
Spartan Theory says, Tim, I just want to thank you for using Mac's stupid science bitch argument on Ian the other night. You know, comedy writing is dead on when it's being used used in real life on a political podcast. It's always sunny. Indeed. But the stupid science bitch argument is actually a literal philosophical argument that they comedically applied to Mac. Do you guys, you know what this is?
Yeah.
You're familiar?
It's always sunny. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
He's Christian, so he's trying to argue that the atheists are wrong because they have faith in their systems without seeing evidence. All the same, this is like standard basic knowledge philosophy. Mm-hmm. You simply choose to believe what you want to believe, because most people don't actually do any of the research or the science or track the evidence. They just think that someone telling it to them is truth, is evidence. Mm-hmm. So that's everybody.
Yeah,
literally
I was thinking that, like, do I believe that Genghis Khan invaded Europe? I have faith in it because of evidential proof. I guess you would call it proof, but I don't even know. So belief is like a form of proof or of faith, kind of.
There's no proof for many things. Even in court, we often don't have proof. We have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't even know how you get proof, to be completely honest.
It's a loaded term.
I mean, even now with AI, it's going to be even harder. It's
right.
One thing if you're caught on camera doing something, but it's like, yep, now we can fake that.
Yeah, so...
Even memory can be faked. Like, your memories
right.
aren't perfect.
This is what Branco was telling us, Andrew Branco, that if... And I think Angry Cops was talking about it too, witness contamination.
Terrible.
If there are two witnesses that see the same thing and they get put together next to each other, they will create a new memory together of what really happened.
Yep.
Wow. That's
yeah. It changes their memory of things.
First thing you do is isolate all the witnesses so that way they don't contaminate each other.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I said the AI stuff that's really scary is when they take a video like Trump saying, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, because they should be condemned totally, and someone edits they to some. And then you have two videos where he goes, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis, the white nationalists, because some should be condemned totally. Democrats share that version. Republicans share the other. And then people who are there and watch Trump speak are asked, which did he say? And they'll go, I'm pretty sure he said some. Because they don't like Trump or they're biased, and some news outlet said it.
Yep. And it fits their bias.
Indeed. Scary times, man. Alpha Turkey says, only 2 judges. This better be the beginning. Oh, yeah. Hey, look, Bannon said expect arrests in the summer. We're getting arrests in spring.
Hey, there you go.
And some people are like, they're not high enough. Oh, it's 2 judges. You know, like, we're getting the ball rolling. What do you think? They're going to come out and arrest Biden on day 1?
And they got to arrest, like, hardcore crime. Like, this is crime, you know, and anybody reasonable can look at this and say, this is crime.
Yeah.
Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, you are so happy I left that mallet there. This is Raymond's mallet.
Oh, nice work, Raymond. Yes.
I saw it on the counter and I was like, I'm going to bang this. Here.
Dirty.
Order.
Tim.
Judge Tim.
Order.
Dirty.
Let's see. Jack Rivers Poker says, these judges should get the maximum on any charge. As a CDL driver, if I get pulled over, I automatically get a ticket for any infraction. Reasoning is you should have known better. They should know better. Indeed, they're judges.
Yeah.
Well, Trump right now has the supremacy clause on his side, and this is Article 4, Clause 2, and this says it establishes the Constitution, the federal laws, treaties are supreme law of the land, and they override any conflicting state laws. So, for instance, Wyoming can't declare war on Ireland. They can't do that because that would violate the supremacy clause. It also goes for sanctuary cities. Those are repugnant of the Constitution as well because we have laws for naturalization and they're federal.
My question to you, Jack Rivers Poker, is that you are sitting at the button with ace queen off suit. Under the gun raises 2.5 big blinds and it folds to you. What's your play? I'll wait. Anyway, back to the super chats.
I'd check. Just saying I'd check.
Ian, you can't check when they've raised you.
I thought they folded. The guy before me folded.
It folds to you. There is a raise from under the gun at 2.5 big blinds.
Check.
You can't. You can fold, call, or raise.
I got to look at my chip count before I make a decision.
Ace queen offsuit.
It's a good hand, but how many players are there?
So the small and the big blinds are after you, and the under the gun has raised 2.5.
Again, I've got to defer to my chip count and do a little math in my head here. Sorry.
I mean, me, because I like to play a little loose and silly and have fun. I just call, because under the gun's strong position for a general raise. They're likely they're going to be tight in the range. But you also got to check the player. But I'm saying generally, when you're talking about like your pre-flop range charts, they're going to be rocking something pretty strong to go into the gun and raise right away.
I want to shout out Balatro, game of the year last year. I think you would love it. It's a poker game.
It's like a poker like strategy.
Yeah, with jokers that do all these crazy abilities and stuff. It's cool.
What was it? What was that? Wrong button?
Sorry.
The show's not over yet.
Carter Banks, ladies and gentlemen.
Darth Carl says, I just purchased a Rumble subscription. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, use promo code TIM10. You save $10 on an annual membership, which basically means instead of spending $10 a month, you're going to be spending I think it's $89 for the whole year. Here's the thing, guys. Rumble Premium and the Timcast Discord are separate because, like when we were talking with Rumble on how do we partner, that was a roadblock we didn't know how to solve because running the Discord requires staff that is not related to Rumble. And then Rumble membership gives you everyone, including Steven Crowder and Russell Brand and anybody with premium. So we were like, okay, anybody who was a member up to that point gets both for just, if you're a Timcast member, you get a free membership. But at that point, it became two different things. Because if you're spending $10 a month, or if you use promo code TIM10 on Rumble, you get everybody's premium content. And there's a lot of premium content. Plus we have the Green Room podcast is an entirely different show behind the scenes for about a half an hour or 45 minutes, Monday through Friday on rumble.com/Timcast IRL. So there's another show you can watch, and it's pretty uncensored. I really recommend you watch the Green Room Uncensored with me and Tara Palmieri. You guys know her. You love her when she was on, and we were arguing, and all the conservatives didn't like her. They called her a lib journalist. The Green Room was even better, feminist, not anti-feminist argumenting that I think you'll love. Apparently, the people who watched it loved it. So that's at rumble.com/Timcast IRL for premium users. Definitely check that one out. We had a lot of fun. All right, On Screen with Levine says, hey, Tim and crew, I'm doing my best to fight for Canada. I've knocked on over 5,000 doors, and I'm trying to put out some shorts at On Screen with Levine. Good luck saving your country, sir. I mean that. But at any rate, if you fail, we look forward to taking your land from you. I never got more death threats than when I jokingly said we will take Canada and strip them of their political representation.
I feel for those Canadians because they're probably like, what's going to happen to us? Kind of like we're Mark Carney now.
Well, considering the people think Trump is Hitler, they're probably genuinely fearful that Trump will invade and seize Canada.
Well, you know what? Canada had their opportunity under the Articles of the Confederation, the 11th article. It said, Canada's welcome to join us. And Canada's like, no, we'd rather be redcoats.
We asked Quebec.
Yeah.
We were people think there were only 13 colonies. Mm-hmm. This is crazy. There was a lot more than that. I mean, how many were there in the Canadian territories? There's a handful, weren't there?
Yep.
And then I think the founding fathers went to all of the colonies that were under British control. And Quebec was like, nah, we ain't interested.
Yeah, it was Benedict Arnold went up there and tried to take it.
Yeah, he tried to take it and he failed. Yeah. Yep.
Oopsie.
Yep. And then basically, I think Georgia and South Carolina were like, what's all this talk about you not wanting slaves? And Thomas Jefferson was like, well, yeah, we think slavery is bad. And they're like, then we're out. Okay, fine. We won't complain about the slave thing and stay. And so they originally, Thomas Jefferson was going to include in the Declaration a complaint that the Crown had, I forgot the wording he used, but brought slaves to wage war against the colonists against their will. And South Carolina and Georgia were like, nah, we like slaves.
Yep.
So he decided not to include it because if he did, they would not have joined the effort and there would have been no independence.
Exactly. And we needed France to win the war. But they did include, he had brought the Hessians over and he armed the Canadians and he armed the natives.
Yep. Armed the natives against us.
He even armed colonists against their own families and their friends. They take them out to sea and say, okay, we're gonna either throw you off this ship or you're gonna go back and unalive your entire family. So that's 26th grievance.
To all of the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia fans out there, and I know Tate is not because he's not old enough and he doesn't know what that is. They had an episode where they went back in time, and the joke was, I think it was Dennis and Mac in the colonial era, and they said, we don't want independence. We're going to get killed. Let's draft a Declaration of Dependence. That was a real thing. It existed. There were loyalists to the crown who wrote a Declaration of Dependence, and they got people to sign it and tried going to the crown and be like, no, we want to stay with you. And just nobody cares. It's not American history. Like it is. It's just a blip. Let's see. We'll grab one more. Mikael Isaacson says, I can't wait for the Swedish version of this purge of corruption. We are unbelievably corrupt, so much more than what people think. It's more entrenched and hidden here. That's why when I went to South Korea, when I went to Sweden, it was called people called it the North Korea of the North. That's why I said South Korea, because I was thinking when I was in South Korea. I went there too, but they just called North Korea. Sweden, there were people who referred to it as the North Korea of the North.
Why?
Because it is if a country could be the Stepford Wives, it's Sweden.
I don't know Stepford Wives.
Can you explain it?
It looks pretty and it feels pretty, but it's actually really controlled.
The women were all robots. And so they're like, everything is right this way and everything's uniform machine state. Like if you think the deep state here is bad, don't go to Sweden. Sweden is creepy. It's creepy. It's like everybody blinks in unison while wearing the same clothes. Creepy. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So creepy.
Yeah. Very. All right, my friends, smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know. I will be back tomorrow morning because I am working Saturdays now. Because, I don't know, I guess, why not?
You're just looking for something to do?
Well, to be honest, Allison and I would go and play pool or we'd go to the casino or something. Now, I got the boys, Andy and Brandon, are like, we got to drag Tim out, but with the baby, he's not going anywhere. And they were saying, like, how do we drag you out to go to the casino with us? And I was like, why would I want to do that? And they were like, well, when can you come out? And I said, I can go out whenever I want. And they're like, oh, go to the casino with us. And I said, why would I want to go to the casino? I can hang out with my wife and my kid. And they were like, oh. So, instead of doing that, I just stay home because it's more fun. And so then I'm like, okay, if I'm going to go to bed like normal and watch movies with the family, I'll just come in and work Saturday morning and then hang out with the family. We don't have anywhere to go or do anything that's more interesting than what we're doing. So we're enjoying ourselves. So follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. I'll be here tomorrow morning. Josie, you want to shout anything out?
Sure. You can follow me on X at TRHL Official. That's really it. That's all I do.
Josie, the redheaded libertarian.
Josie, the redheaded libertarian.
I made a video on YouTube today about Jesus turning water into wine. I read the passage in John 2 and was just trying to make sense of it. It's a really great story. It's kind of like a sitcom if you read the passage and just imagine them buzzing around Mary's like, Jesus, we're out of wine. And Jesus is like, why are you bothering me? I'm here with my friends. And he's like, all right, fine. And he goes back and he's got these jugs of water. And then all of a sudden it cuts to the banquet guy. And he's like, this is delicious wine. It's great. It's hilarious. Check it out at YouTube at Ian Crossland. Let me know what you think.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can check out our newest record called Anti-Fragile on the internet. YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, all that stuff. Don't forget the Left Lane is for Crime.
We will see you all tomorrow morning. I'll have some segments up, and then we're back with Timcast IRL on Monday. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see y'all then.